Hey folks, John from Complete Technology Solutions, your friend in the computer business. So we're back with our part 2 today of our magic mirror, which we got all our pieces over here. But I had a little bit of an announcement for you, something that's kind of interesting. I got a very cool donation box in the other day. A few really old computers. Now, I'm not talking about collectibles from the 80s, but somewhere in the early 90s to mid 90s computers. One computer actually came in, it looks like it's from the mid 2000s. That's actually going to be going for a donation. We know how that works. And one other very special computer. And they were all together. Now, I'm not going to tell you about the other one yet. We'll get to that one in the next video because that one's going to be fun for sure. All right, guys. So basically what we're going to be doing with that is just like before, I'm going to bring them out here one by one. You know me, I nothing scripted. I want this whole thing live so you can see exactly what I see. So what we'll be doing is bringing up each computer one by one, taking a look at it, see what condition it's in. If it functions, cool. If it doesn't function, we'll put a little bit of effort into it. We will be doing a restoration on one of them so that we can donate it to somebody, and I'll let you know about that. If you're a family out there, once again, and you're in the area and you need a computer, let me know because I do these donations quite a bit, you know that. And then, of course, we'll talk about the other one. So we'll get to that later. So, all right, guys. So be right back with you, and we're going to get fired up on this magic mirror. Sit tight. All right, guys, back with you. So what I've done here is I've kind of laid out on the table here all of the items that we're going to be using. Now, I know we went through this last time. I've made a couple of modifications and cuts to the actual frame. We're going to go over that here in just a second, just to make this go a little bit smoother here. As you can see, I don't have a full woodworking facility in here, so a little of this I had to do off-site. So we'll come back to that. So if you recall, what we needed was a monitor. Now, what I did is I chose the Dell 21-inch monitor. And I have removed, if you remember in the last video, it actually had a pedestal on it. I have removed the pedestal. And now, there's one thing I found here, and I did this and I was really amazed. Figuring out how to mount this was a challenge. Now, I was determined to go portrait with this, but then I thought, you know what? That's going to be too skinny. It's not going to give me what I want for the feed. So we're going to go landscape. So then it led me to think, well, how are we going to mount it landscape if we want it low on a frame? I took the original metal bracket off of the old platform that was on this, broke the plastic all off of it, and ended up with this metal bracket. Now, I'm going to show Stumpy here. I actually had to go ahead and drill out these two holes because these were actually riveted in. So I drilled out the two holes and put these screws in it so that this thing will actually pivot. So what this will do is this will slide up into the actual monitor itself, just like it was stock, but this will act as a back brace so we can set the angle and it will sit on the table. So this is called repurposing. Always a good thing, guys. When you're doing these projects, you never know what you're going to run into. So repurpose what you can, save a little bit of money, make it look awesome. That's what we're shooting for. So we've got our monitor and we've got our stand. We're going to set this over here. We've got our Raspberry. Now, what we are going to do is, in just a second, I'm going to start this by configuring this Raspberry, this Raspbian that we've got in here. I've actually got a 16 gig card in here. You don't need any bigger than that for a magic mirror, okay? So we've got the 16 gig card in here, and we've already got all of our heat sinks on here. We've got our heat sink on the back, and it's ready to go, okay? So the Raspberry is prepared. Now, I was looking for a way to mount this to the back of the screen. I thought I was actually going to screw this on here. It's simply not necessary. In fact, I had considered using one of my standard stock cases for the Raspberry. But it just seems like overkill. It really is, because we've got an exposed unit. No one's ever going to see this unless they flip the thing over backwards. So what we're going to do is I took two pieces of this industrial strength Velcro, and we're actually going to put it right on the back of the Raspberry. Now what that'll do is it'll elevate it off of the back just a little bit, so that it'll allow some air to get back to this heat dissipator. But it will also save us having to use another case and waste that. So got that. And if you guys will recall, we've got our two-piece glass. Now this is the reflective one-way, so you can see through it. Actually, you can see through it both ways, but if you have a black background on one side, it's a mirror on this side, and that's all you see. Now we have already cut this. Now you'll notice I've got an orange piece of tape here. When you buy these, they're always going to be too long. We went through 20 methods trying to figure out the best way to cut this. What we finally determined, if you take a piece of tape, now this is duct tape, and I have not pulled off the protective coating, so when I pull the coating off, the tape will come right off with it. But if you put the piece of duct tape right along your line, you can use a sharp pair of scissors and just cut down the line, and if Stumpy can see it, you actually get a nice clean cut all the way across. And any minor splintering that you get on this is actually going to be covered up by the bezel anyway, so you're not going to see any of it. So we've got this cut and ready to go. We're going to set it aside over here. And finally, we remember our frame. All right, now this is the same one that we had last time. Now let me show you what I've done to it. We've gone ahead and pulled out the little thumb rails that were in here. They had these little, they look kind of like tacks that were stuck in across the back here. We're actually going to use something like that to put the monitor in because we don't want to get too complicated and I don't want to glue it in. So I'll show you what I got in mind for that once we get to that point. So, but right now we're going to go ahead and pop this out and I'm going to show you what we've got. Here was the original. We take this out and it's actually, I'm actually going to use this on my set somewhere because I think that's kind of cool, feature presentation. So, all right. Behind this there was this white piece of board. Now this was a solid piece of backer board that was on this. It was glued to it. So what I did is I cut out the square in the center of this in order to accommodate the monitor. Now on the other side, I took a black piece of masking and I put it inside, cutting it on the inside about 1/4 inch all the way around to conceal it. So this is actually what's going to be sitting up against our monitor. So that is what we're going to actually be using inside the frame. So as you can see, when you put it inside the frame, you get a nice black rail all the way around. And that'll be nice and flat once we get that in there. All right? So let's go ahead and we're going to get the desk cleaned up here a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and get the Raspberry configured. All right? So I'm going to walk through this step by step. And I'm going to see if old Stumpy here will get on the screen and get nice good videos of it so you guys can see what we're doing. A lot of this is, of course, what Raspbian is built in. A lot of these commands can get long and a little bit confusing. So if, as I'm going along here, I'm going real slow and I'll pause at points so that you can see the whole command. And then if you're trying to follow along, you'll be able to just copy it in there. So hang tight. We're going to pop this on the screen here and we're going to get it started. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take the Raspberry that we've already got all pre-configured. We've already got all the heat sinks on both sides. I'm using a wireless keyboard and a mouse dongle, which, by the way, I highly suggest you get if you ever use one of these. It's very handy. We've already got our thermal dissipator on the back, and we've got our operating system inserted there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and boot into Raspbian. Now I'm going to get Stumpy set up on this screen, and then we're going to walk through a couple steps to go ahead and get this set up and ready for the mirror. Hang tight. So for those who don't know, what we're going to go ahead and do is when you load Raspbian on your Raspberry for the first time, it's going to come up to this screen right here, and it's going to allow you to go ahead and set up and configure your Raspberry. Now the cool thing about this is you can go ahead and set up your wireless network. You can set up, in this particular case, we can set up the background, whether we want the magic mirror to be in landscape or portrait, and how we want it to look, how the display is going to look. Now, I've actually made another kind of executive decision. I've seen these both ways, landscape and portrait, but I had sort of an epiphany the other night about how we're going to go ahead and set this up. We're going to set it up to where it's actually in landscape mode. It's going to give us more viewable area, and it should be able to give us a little more control over our scrolls on the side. So, we're in the Raspberry Pi desktop here. We're just going to go ahead and next. And we're going to go ahead and set this to the United States. This is for the keyboard language and layout. And now it's going to set the location. Once the location is set, it's going to ask us to connect to the Wi-Fi. Now, you can change the default password if you want to on the Raspberry. Now, typically, I don't do that. The default password is Pi. I like to leave it blank, and the reason is because if you're dealing with a magic mirror, you're going to be rebooting this occasionally, and you don't want to have to break out a keyboard in order to go ahead and put in a password. So we're going to leave that blank and go ahead and go next. Now it's going to search for the Wi-Fi networks. Now keep in mind, guys, this is all happening right here next to me, sitting here. We haven't even cased this up yet, which is pretty cool. So all right, we're going to go ahead and connect up here. And here we go. By the way, guys, this is absolutely no secret. This is the Wi-Fi that we use here at the cattle barn. So now, once this is connected up here, it's going to go ahead and it's going to download updates for it. This can take anywhere from 3 to, well, I've seen it take up to 8 to 10 minutes to get all of the updates right here. You want to go ahead and do this. This is critically important. If you don't, you may get a Raspberry that doesn't reboot properly, freezes up, shuts down, all the stuff you don't want to have to deal with, especially considering we're going to be using this all the time unmonitored. So definitely go ahead and do all of your updates. So we're going to hit next and let this go. And it's going to do all the updates. We're going to let it run everything, and we'll get right back with you. Hang tight. All right, guys. And then after you get the system is up to date message, we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And we're going to do a few more things on screen. Hang tight. Okay, guys. So what we've done is we've gone ahead and we have rebooted the computer now. Excuse me, the Raspberry. After all of the updates were totally done, it does actually prompt you to reboot. So we did go ahead and reboot it. So the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is go down to what would be the command prompt. Now this is Unix, so you can't really think of it like a command prompt, but that's basically what it is. And what we're going to type in here, we have to get a few pieces of software to make this work. We're going to type in sudo, and I will put this in the description, apt- here, all right, apt, move mouse out of way, though you don't bump it with your finger. Always a good thing. All right, so what we're going to type is sudo apt-get space update. Now I will go ahead and I will put a couple links down in the description with these instructions as well, and I'll see if I can superimpose this on here too so you can see it also if you're following along. So once you go ahead and hit that, it's going to go out there and it's going to get any updates that are currently available for the stretch interface, which is going to let us change portrait, landscape, change the backgrounds, all that kind of stuff. As you can see, the updates are done. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we want to be able to go ahead and set this up so if you wanted to on your home network, you could remote desktop into it to make changes. That way, if you needed to do anything to it, you wouldn't have to constantly plug in a keyboard and a mouse to do these kind of changes. All right, so the next thing we're going to type in is sudo, which incidentally, guys, by the way, sudo in Linux is super user do, kind of like, you know, you're the administrator, go get it. That's what super user is. apt, just like last time, /get, because we're going to do a get command. And we're going to do an install. And we're going to do a real VNC. Now, a lot of you guys know what this is. -server. Okay. Space real VNC. -VNC. -viewer. All right. So take a look at that. Sudo apt-get space install space real VNC -server. See, gotta have VNC in here. Real VNC -VNC -server. There we go. Space real VNC -VNC -viewer. So that will put the viewer and the server on here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and press enter on this and let it go out there and get it. All right, so from this point, once we've got the first two commands down, we're going to want to configure the Raspbian. Now, this gets a little techie, so make sure you follow along with the instructions closely if you're doing this on your side. All right? So what you're going to do is you're going to type in sudo again, so super user do, and we're going to do raspi. All right? And we're going to do config, okay? Just like that. All right, and that's going to bring us to the configuration screen, okay? All right, so what we're going to do is once we're in the configuration tool here, we're going to go down to interfacing options, all right? And we're going to go down to VNC. All right, and we're going to enable the VNC server, all right? That's going to enable the server. Okay, so once we've got that in there, we're going to go down to finish. All right, now, on Windows machines, a lot of you know, in order to access the IP address from a command prompt, you type in ipconfig. On a Raspberry, though, it's ifconfig. All right, and this will give you the IP address of your Raspberry if you are currently on the network. Okay, now, as you can see right here, this is actually going to be your IP address. So, If you were to want to access this machine over your network using VNC Viewer on any other computer, you would reference this IP address, and then it would log into it, and it would bring up this desktop on your computer. Now, we don't actually have to do that for what we're doing. We could do it remotely, but I'm just going to do all the configuration on this Raspberry straight up right here on this screen so you guys can see it. All right, so once you have gone ahead and you have done finish, it's going to bring you back to your terminal window again. Now, this command's a little long, but this is what's going to get us set up for what we need as far as the feed goes. So, we're going to do a sudo nano, N-A-N-O, and I will, like I said, I will put descriptions down there in the field so you can see these. All right, /etc /WPA _ supplicant /WPA _ supplicant -CONF. All right, once again, I will do a copy on these, so you'll have these up there while we're doing them. Pause. I think there's supposed to be a space here. Oops, no, not there. Here. Okay, now, in here, what you're going to want to do, the reason we run the supplicant, this will tell you everything about the Wi-Fi setup the way you've got it right now. So as you can see right now, we're connected to the CTS Playtime High Capacity. That's actually my network here in the cattle barn. And this is actually the key that's in here. And this is the type of security. So odds are this is going to be correct if you're already connected on the Wi-Fi. So that's not a huge problem. All right. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to the next step. All right. Once you've verified all this information, you can go ahead and hit Control-X. And it'll ask you if you're going to go ahead and save the buffer. You can go ahead and hit Y. All right, and then that will save the file for you, and it will automatically save it if you want to save it on there. So you don't have to necessarily because you didn't make any changes in this particular place. So we're going to come back in here, and what we're going to do next is we're going to type in df-h with a space in there. All right, and what that's going to do is it's going to bring up all the information, the file structure, how much space is used, how much is available, so on and so forth on the disk. Okay, so the next part of this is actually a pretty long command, so I'm going to go ahead and type this in here in two different pieces for you so you can see, because it is it's quite large. So this is where we're going to start putting the actual software in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our sudo like we did before. And we're going to do our apt dash, and we're going to go git space remove, all right, space idle, IDLE 3, space java dash common, space libre office asterisk. Now, the next one's going to sound a little bit strange, but you'll understand once we get into this. We're going to do Minecraft-Pi, all right, space scratch, space new scratch, N-U-S-C-R-A-T-C-H, space penguin, P-E-N-G-U-I-N, puzzle, space Python. Like I said, I know this is long, guys, but it's necessary to get all this in one swipe so you don't have to mess with it. So Python dash Minecraft space Python 3 dash Minecraft space smart sim space Sonic. Once again, you'll understand why when we get into this. Dash pi space Wolfram, W-O-L-F-R-A-M, dash engine. All right, now, once again, I know that is an incredibly long command. I will put that in there, and I will also list it down in the description. In fact, that might be easier, so I'll probably just put the whole thing in there, so all you have to do is paste it in. All right? Once you've got that, you're going to go ahead and verify your all the typing, all the spelling, everything else. All right. Once you've got it and you've verified it, go ahead and press enter, and it's going to go out there and start downloading files. And it does not go very slow. It's actually pretty quick. All right, now the next step is we're going to type in sudo space apt space get space auto remove. And what that's going to do is remove any of the unnecessary stuff on here to free up space on the drive. So, all right, we're going to press enter. And this will just take a second. It'll ask you if you want to remove it. Just go ahead and hit yes. It's freeing up a whole 461 kilobytes. What a concept, huh? All right. All right, once we're back to this point, you're going to go ahead and type in the sudo, and we did this once before at the beginning, but we've made some changes now, so we want to make sure that we've got all the updates that are necessary. So we want sudo apt-get space update. Okay? Press enter. That'll go out and check for the updates for you. What you'll also see is this should go out there and download quite a few files. Yeah. Okay, so once this one is done, what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same command, except we're going to change update to upgrade. All right, press enter. Okay, the next step we're going to go ahead and do is called sudo space rpi dash update. All right, and what that's going to do is it's going to go in here and it's going to do any updates that are necessary, back it up as it goes, and get the software that we need. Okay, guys, so once you've got your, it's done, it'll do all the mods, and then it'll go ahead and drop you back at your command prompt there. What you're going to do is a sudo reboot. All right, and that's going to reboot your Raspberry. All right, guys, and as you can see, we are back in here to the desktop. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and download the files that will allow the Magic Mirror to function the way we want it to and allow us to set up our configuration to look the way we want it to look. All right, so once again, this is a long one, but I will put a description in the field here so you'll be able to follow along with it. All right, so you're going to type in curl dash sl space https :/ and it's going to be raw .github, G-I-T-H-U-B. Most of you guys are familiar with that site, by the way. User content, and then .com, and we're going to do a slash, and it's going to be, now, this is the guy that's actually got this on here right now. It's been up for quite a while, so I don't think it's going anywhere. So it's going to be Mitch, all right, Mitch, just like that, / Magic Mirror / master / installers / raspberry .sh, all right, space, and then you want to type in bash like that. All right, once you've got this in here, you're going to go ahead and press enter. And it's going to go ahead and update all your packages for you. All right, we're going to go ahead and let this run, and I'll be right back with you. All right, so once you've got the Raspberry configured and ready to go, all right, you don't have to have anything else on it. Just grab your Raspberry and set it aside. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take our frame. Now, we've already got all this prepped and ready. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you that is kind of cool. Using the bracket will allow you to just set it on a table. But if you notice on this frame, it actually has these little hooks. I'm going to try to show Stumpy here on both sides so that you can mount this up to the wall if you wanted to. So make sure when you do this, you've got it mounted so that you can use that and hang it up on the wall if you want to. All right? So we're going to go ahead and take in our taped piece that we have here, and we're going to lay it face down in the frame. All right? Now this is going to press in pretty tight. What I would suggest doing, and what we did do, when you cut, assuming you use the same masking that we did, when you cut that masking, cut it over just about maybe a 1/16 of an inch all the way around. That way you really have to force this down into that hole. All right, that'll make things a little bit easier to hold the monitor down better. All right. So our next step is we're going to go ahead and we're going to peel off the layer, our protective layer, off of our glass here. Well, glass, our fiberglass, I should say. All right, so be very gentle. Now, you want to try to keep from getting any fingerprints on this. Now I'm going to peel off one side and I'm going to show you guys what this looks like so you know it looks just like a mirror. Look there. There's the camera. You guys can see yourself. Isn't that nice? All right, so through this side I can see through. This side you can't see through. And I'm going to go ahead and peel off the other side real quick here. Actually, while I got this here, let me lay this down. Might make it a little easier. All right, now we'll peel off this side of the protective layer. There we go. And as expected, our duct tape is coming right off with it. Now, remember what I told you guys, that I don't try to hide anything when it comes to the video. So in other words, if I make mistakes or something bad happens, I'm going to tell you about it. So Stumpy here is going to pan in on something that I did. Yeah, if you can see this wonderful, delicious scratch right here. When we were trying to figure out ways to cut this, so what you can see here is I had a very sharp pocket knife, and I was scoring the glass so that we could figure, once again, trying to figure out the best way to cut this. And my attention was momentarily taken. Just for a split second, I was distracted. And the knife went right up there and caused a big old scratch. The good news is it's on the back side, and most of the bezel covers it, so we shouldn't actually see it. So, once again, though, I do these things live. I want you guys to see it as it's happening. All right? So we're going to go ahead and put the glass in here where we're going to want it. Now, what I'm going to do is, on the sides of this, I'm actually going to just use some regular old stick glue just to hold the glass in place until we get the monitor on top of it. So hang tight 1 second. We'll be right back with you. Okay, so as you can see, we've actually got our glass down in here. Now, we cut this really, really close. I mean, you can see that it fits in there snugly. So now we're going to go ahead and take the monitor, and we're going to lay it on top of the glass. Now, this is what we were talking about with making the decision as to A, what was going to be seen on there, and B, how we were going to anchor this to the back of this frame. This is a little bit of the challenging part we were talking about. So, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to secure this using a couple different methods. We're going to use some screws on the sides, and then we're going to have some anchors going down on an angle, both directions, just to hold the thing in place. So hang on 1 second. We're going to get this set in. All right, folks, back with you. Now I'm going to have Stumpy here kind of take you a tour of what I did. This actually, though it isn't the prettiest I've ever done, it's rock solid, so I'm actually pretty happy about this. So I'm going to pick up Stumpy here. What I did is I took these screws, and on each corner, you've actually got them pinned in. All right, and these are going in probably about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. There and there. On the corner again. And they're all touching. And now on the top, I put 2 larger ones, which are actually pinned down against the monitor. This monitor, I could literally move my whole workbench, and the monitor's not going anywhere. So that's exactly what we were shooting for. All right, so now that we've got the monitor mounted, and I'm going to give you guys a little brief look at the front so you can see what we're looking at here. There you go. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool, coming along. All right, so once we've got all our screws in here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to mount our Raspberry. Now, we were talking about where we were going to put that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 2 strips. We're going to mount it to the back of the Raspberry. Now, our HDMI port is actually right here. Given that this is kind of, we got an indent here where the original panel was that would conceal the base, we're going to go ahead and use that to mount the Raspberry. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take the tape off one side here. There we go. Take the tape off the other side. Like so. And once again, I'm doing this because it still allows airflow to get through from the bottom to this actual dissipator. So we don't want to superheat this thing. Not that I suspect it's going to draw, have too much heat, but the monitor itself does actually have a little itself, so it's going to have a little bit. Pause. Shift. And we got our mounted right there. That's where we want to put it. Okay, and as you can see, it's solid. It's not going anywhere. Okay. Next, we're going to go ahead and get our HDMI cable, and we're going to get it plugged in and connected up. And tidy these cables up because whether this is sitting down or it's up on the wall, we don't want a whole bunch of stuff flopping around. So we are going to be using some zip ties here. Pretty this up a little bit. And we'll give it one more here. Now, if you'll recall, we were talking about the base and what I did with this metal piece. Now, this actually slides right up into the monitor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this up in here real quick so we can kind of get a mock-up. I have a feeling it will also allow me to get kind of creative with the mounting here. All right, so you see where that's mounted right there? That's how it's going to end up sitting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten down this screw real quick, put this kind of where we're going to want it to be. My guess is probably about there. Of course, we'll be able to make some minor adjustments on this once we get it all together, so that won't be a big deal. All right, it's nice and stiff, so we'll be able to modify it, and yet it will hold the weight of the monitor. All right. And we're going to go ahead and clean this up just a tad here. What I'm going to do is run this out the bottom. That way it'll kind of keep it in place where we want it. All right, next thing to do is to get the power cord connected up to the Raspberry. One second. Now for the power cord on the Raspberry, given that this is not actually going to be running any gaming systems or anything like that, we don't need to run anything other than a standard 2.4 amp power supply on this. So we're going to use a regular old generic Raspberry power supply. It's what it's designed for. All right, so we're going to go ahead and plug that in. And we're going to leave this cable here. Now I'm going to go ahead and tie it to the HDMI cable, but at the end of the day, of course, you know this is going to come off the back and plug into the wall or power outlet or strip or whatever we're going to end up plugging into, the same place that the monitor itself plugs in. On that note, we're going to go ahead and get the power cable for the monitor hooked up. Pause.
Are you having fun yet, sir?
Actually, yeah, I'm actually excited to see this working. If it doesn't turn on, I'm going to go home.
Probably destroy it.
Yeah, maybe.
Burn to put a fire.
We're going to have a barbecue! For that, we're going to go ahead and use this power cable. Now, this is standard old PC power cable, which is another reason, by the way, that I actually picked this particular monitor. There were a couple of options I had, but they all had proprietary connections on them, and which means you had to have a power block. We didn't want that. We wanted to use regular old power for this, so we didn't have to mess with that. All right, we're going to plug that in. Now we're going to go ahead and cable tie this one here too. And leaving us enough slack to get to our power outlet. Now generally, I will try to leave the same amount of slack on both of these so that you're dealing with the same problem on both, or they're both connected at the exact same point. So that's what we're going to do. All right, we're going to tie these on. Now, we're not actually leaving all of these zip ties on. As we go along, we're training the cables. Okay, so once we get the final set on that are holding all these together, we will be clipping all the other ones out. That's a good practice to do if you're wiring up anything that's complicated, so you can kind of see where you are as you go, get your cables trained, get them in place, get them where you want them. Then you want to clip off the excess cable. You don't need, 8,000 ties over ties over ties. So, good thing to know. The good news is also all of these cable ties are adding support to the structure itself as far as the cabling goes. All right, and the last one. There we go. All right, I'm going to clean up the cable ties. Be right back with you. Okay, guys, so here we go. bring Stumpy over here so I can give him an idea of what we're looking at. And as you can see, got the Raspberry up in place, HDMI and power connected to it. We have our SD card already installed. Nice coil of both wires. The HDMI is going in right there. This is actually going to be our back lever. As you can see, it's kind of stiff, and we'll be able to adjust that once we get it where we want it. And we got both our cables coming down over here, which will go into a power strip. All right. So the next thing to do is to go ahead and fire this thing up and see what it does. Now, I'm going to tell you, during this last little break here, I had flipped this up, and one thing I noticed is when I had put the masking around the edge, I had unfortunately pinched it a little bit, so one side the masking got kind of crinkled up a little bit. It is an issue that will be resolved at some point here in the near future, but at this point in time, it's we're just going to let it go the way it is. I actually have another idea and another way to mask as well, so we'll probably be coming up with that at another point in time, but for right now, just know that I am aware of that. So, cool. All right, give me a sec. We're going to fire up. We'll be right back with you. All right, guys, so we got Stumpy all pointed at it. Now, you can actually kind of see here what's going on through this. By the way, this warping effect you can't actually see if you're here. It's only because we're on Stumpy. But you can't really see it clearly. You can kind of see what's going on over here on the sides. I'm going to kill the lights here in just a second, and let's see if that solves the problem. Watch this. Almost like I was magic, right? All right, now I know we still have some glare effect in the background, and I'm actually going to try to turn this out of the glare effect so we can see it. And you can see exactly what's going on. There you go. Now you can kind of see exactly what we've got going on here. So you got a mirror, but as you can see, this has got a feed for the daily weather, the weekly weather, the time, local news feeds, and of course my own personal cute little messages that come across. So let's set up Stumpy here, and you can see what's going on. You can watch the weather scrolling by. This is actually really cool. Now, I'll tell you, and I'm going to leave Stumpy pointed at this guy so you can kind of see what's going on with it. One thing is once you've got this completed, and I don't think I actually put this when I was doing the video on how to load the software, in the Magic Mirror folder, there's a config file. In that config file is where you can actually set up where you want everything on here. Like, for instance, I told it that I wanted the current weather up here, that I wanted it in Fahrenheit, which, by the way, is interesting. The way you set it, there's two options. One of them is metric, which is by default. But, you know, a lot of us here, we don't use metric. Well, you'd think the other one might be something like standard or Fahrenheit. It isn't. It's actually imperial. So if you set it to imperial, you'll go ahead and get your 94 degrees, so on and so forth. Not only does it show that, though, but this links up to their website. So it's not only going to show the temperature, but it's going to show what it actually feels like with humidity factors, which is actually kind of cool. It's got a weekly forecast right here, which is actually really cool. And this is Texas, so the weekly forecast is hot. Yeah. Anyway, over here, we've actually got the holidays and the calendar. Now, this can be set up any way you want to. And I've got the time set up over here along with the date. So this is actually pretty cool. This will you can set it up in anything you want to. Your news feeds can come from anywhere you want them to. You can set up any city, any time zone, so on and so forth. And this looks absolutely wonderful. So I will probably be using this. I'm going to set it up here on set. As Stumpy can see here, you can see what I'm saying about crinkling my edge. I'm going to do something about that. I have an idea about that to change this because you can see it kind of crinkled in a couple places. And I suspect that has less to do with the pressure and more to do with the glue that I used. So we'll get back to that, but either way, we got a nice, functional, awesome-looking Magic Mirror. And it was pretty simple. It was cheap to build. We had the parts in hand. We reused what we had to. And overall, with the used monitor and the Raspberry, we probably have 50, 60 bucks in this. And it was a great project. A lot of fun. Now watch this. Another magic thing I'm going to do. I'm going to turn the lights back on. Let's see if she can still see it here. I got Stumpy over on it here. Stumpy can see me there. I can see that. All right, here we go. Let's try that. Almost like we planned it. All right. So as you can see, you can still see some of the feeds. You can actually turn up the brightness on the monitor too. This is at about 60%. So I figure if this is going to be in a bathroom or in a room, that ought to be about perfect. So there we go. Our first Magic Mirror has been assembled and is functioning 100%. By the way, the mounting technique, I'm going to show you guys this real quick. The back bracket that I used. Remember we were talking about reusing the existing bracket? Look how well that worked. That's actually holding it in an exact perfect position. There's Stumpy. I'm taking a picture for you there so you can see what we've got. So that turned out absolutely perfect. Exactly what I had envisioned. And now you guys can check it out for yourself. Now we'll have this up here at the barn. I will probably end up giving this away at some point here in the near future. I'll let you know. It'll be all kinds of fun. So thank you guys very much for joining me on this. This was a lot more complicated than I expected, just from a logistical standpoint. Had I used a pre-cut frame, the pre-cut one-way glass, all that kind of stuff, this would have gone a whole lot smoother. But I didn't want that. I wanted the real world. I wanted to see if I could make it work with what you could buy right off the shelf. And it did. It turned out just perfect. Exactly what I wanted. So remember, next video, we're going to be uncrating all those different computers that we got in here and that special one and showing it to you. We also have a video coming up here. I've had a lot of people asking me for some tips on one specific task on a computer. I get this request a lot. Very Jedi request. You'll understand when you see it. So we're going to get to that here shortly also, as well as one other cool one. We're actually going to be working on a digital projector. So a lot of you guys have never seen these. A lot of you certainly never cracked into one. But we got to do a couple minor repairs. I thought you might get a kick out of that too. So stay tuned to the channel. Don't forget, smash that like and subscribe. I've got the new Patreon page coming up, and if you want to help me out on that, that'd be fantastic so I can keep this train rolling and get the new projects in here for you. Thanks again for joining in. Have a great night. We'll see you soon.